Hi guys, back again with quadratics, and we're not going to get off them anytime soon. So it's best to take your time, learn them now, and I'm going to show you actually the first way I ever learned how to factor quadratics, and that's a quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula, I'm going to tell you before you see it, my face is covering it right now, is intimidating looking. But we're going to break it down so you know what the parts mean, and we'll learn how to plug in. Okay, so what you see just above me is our standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It being equal to, I'm going to learn this, 0 is very important. What that's going to tell us is the roots are the roots, if I can use proper English, they are the roots of the problem. Quadratics, and you're like, what are the roots? I hope you remember that the roots are where it crosses the x-axis, right? So when is y equal to 0, and it's set up for less like that in this problem here. Again, English not great today. Okay, so I'm going to show you the quadratic formula. Don't get scared. Move my face. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to first read it to you so that you're used to the language here. You would say negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. And I'm going to write a little note here as well. This says plus or minus, right? Which is going to tell you that you're actually doing two equations here in one. Most of the steps happen together anyways. You would do it the same way. So you keep that plus or minus for a while, but then in the end, one time you add them, one time you subtract them. And why does that make sense? Well, we're dealing with parabolas here, right? And if we're worried about when it crosses the x-axis, sometimes it happens twice, plus or minus. Sometimes, let me see if it'll move. Sometimes it'll happen once, right? If it's just right here. So that means the way you would get that, and this is a preview and really complicated stuff, but if this is here, and there's only one answer, well, that means that you're adding or subtracting 0 to it, right? If I add or subtract 0, the number stays the same. So if all this mess under here is 0, then there'll be one answer. And sometimes there's no real answers, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if I go up here a little bit and it doesn't touch the axis, then there's going to be no answers for that. Just as, you know, my curious kids, this is when this mess is negative. This is when this mess is 0. And this is when this mess is greater than 0. Okay? All right, so this negative b plus or minus the root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And you might say, oh my gosh, it looks terrible. And it does. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to pretend that this is like super easy stuff. But something that hopefully is helpful, and if you want to actually work with me here a little bit, there we go, is I made something so that we can literally plug stuff in. And sorry that things are happening here. Okay, so we're going to literally plug stuff in for these equations over here and do out the work. All right, as I said many times, and I'm going to use that. That's going to mean I'm going to trade it out. All right, so negative b. All right, well, what's my b value? Oh, you know what's going to be helpful here is to really just label those out for myself. So I want my a, my b, and my c. Oops, b doesn't equal c. B and c. All right. So here, my a is my coefficient, right? Just like here, it's the coefficient of x squared. The coefficient of x squared isn't there. If it's not there, it's not that it doesn't exist. It's just I have to ask myself, what times x squared is still x squared? 1. 1 times x squared. So 1. My b term here, oh my gosh, I just noticed something. And I'm glad I noticed that a is still going to be that. B is still going to be the coefficient of my x term, which will make it 13. I forgot a step. I said before, it has to equal to 0. As I look at my problem, does it equal to 0? Can I make it equal to 0? So that's what I'm going to do. Luckily, that doesn't change my A or B, but I need this to equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 15 on both sides, and I should have stopped and did that first. I did on other videos, but at a moment. All right, so this -7 minus 15 is -22, and that equals 0, and we still have x squared plus 13x. And yes, you have to make it equal to 0, otherwise you will get the wrong answer. Then, now my c is -22. All right, so I'm going to look over here on my other Cami. Negative b. Well, my b is 13. I'm not going to worry about the negative sign because I already have that out here set up for myself. So -13 plus or minus. All right, I know my b number. B is 13. Yes, there's a lot of cross-referencing happening here. The more you use it, the better you'll be at it. Minus 4a. All right, so I do my a term, that's 1. And then c, which is a -22. All over 2a. Well, 2 times a is 1. All right, so I'm going to write this. I'm going to do a little of the solving and bring it over here. I'm not going to copy exactly because that's a waste of our time, but we still have -13 plus or minus, right? And it doesn't have to look anything fancy. The square root of 13 squared. Well, I know it's 169. Minus, now -4 times 1 is -4, times -22 is a positive 88, and that's all over 2 times 1, which is 2. All right, so -13 plus or minus. All right, so I'm going to have to get this stuff neater, right? Right now it's a mess, so let's clean it up. -13, oops, that's supposed to be 13. Drawing is subtracting. Square root of 169 plus 88. 169 plus 88 is 7. That's 14, 15. 257. All over 2. Now, I'm going to show you real quick that the square root of 257 is not rational, right? That's something that we call irrational because it would go on forever. This is how far my calculator shows it, but the calculators would show it forever. So it's not a pretty number to deal with. This is an acceptable answer. This shows me that there are 2 roots because one of them is -13 plus the root of 257 over 2. The other one is -13 minus the root of 257 over 2. I'm going to show you what that looks like in the calculator, just so you can see what kind of ridiculous number it is. So it's -13 plus the root of 257 and the reason I put the parentheses around so it divides everything, divided by 2. Also, because I want the 13 divided by 2 as well, if I copy it and I paste it and I switch out a plus for a minus, those are my 2 answers, right? So your answer is going to be -14.51 or 14.52, and the other time it'll cross the x-axis is at 1.52, right? And if I wanted to, because I am a studious young lady, I maybe want to try it out, see what that looks like on Desmos, right? Well, if I plug in x squared plus 13x minus 22, right? And you're like, oh, that's really, there's a 1.516, right? And if I zoom out, up, here's my other one of -14.516. So plugging it into Desmos still gets you the right answer. And if the question is estimate, there it is. We've got the point -14.516 and the point 1.516. If they're asking for an exact answer, these are the exact answers, right? Remember, this is telling us what our x value is. I should write a pencil. This is what x equals. So if I go here, x equals negative 14.516. X is 1.56. I don't know how to say that. All right.